Welcome to the Georgia Show. I'm with my trusty partner, Bill Quinn, and we're going to bring it to you tonight. Bill, the frost just won't quit. What's going on?
The arrogance of people that are involved in all these strange machinations is just astounding. And we're going to show you about 4 different ways that plays out on tonight's show.
We're going to dig into a lot of information. We've got a lot to get through. Hopefully we'll get it done within the hour. We may go a little long, but stay with us. We are brought to you by the Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com. One thing you can really help us with right now is our new no ad subscriptions. And thank you to all of you who have signed up. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. You pay the $100, you get it done. You don't come back for another year, and you get access to all of our content all over the world with no advertisements popping up on your phone or on your computer. We get a lot of good response out of this. We don't have a hard paywall because I don't believe in that on any of our sites. I think the news should be out there. We are here to save the republic, and we are an existential threat to the blob and the matrix and the bad guys. So we want everything free. But if you want to support us, you can watch it with no ads, and that's $10 a month or $100 a year. So we really need people to go do that. Top right corner on Georgia Record or any CDM site, subscribe with no ads. You just click there and go in and do it. So thank you for that. Bill, what are we going to talk about tonight?
So we're going to review what happened with Raffensperger. He made some statements and a suggestion, I guess I'll call it, to other elected officials who had received money from the Frosts, and that's had movement in the last 24 hours. We're going to talk about the latest updates with what's happened with First Liberty and the Frost family. Look at some of the things going on in court. We're going to see some pictures from a very unusual lunch that happened yesterday with some surprising characters. And I'll hold that back. We'll talk about it when we get to it. And then we'll talk about a new financial company that's been formed, and you won't believe by whom. So there you go.
Well, let's jump right into it. First story, and we'll pay some bills a little later.
Okay, sounds good. So I guess when I think of this, you're probably going to be, if you haven't already heard about some of the stuff, you're going to be astounded. And the only thing I could say tonight is you can't make this stuff up. It just is just astounding. So we reported through the Georgia Record that Raffensperger had called on other elected officials to return First Liberty or Frost family contributions, to the receiver or as directed by the SEC and FBI, because so many of these elected, who are now elected officials or in some cases even past elected officials, have received money from these entities. But one of the questions we wanted to ask is, but what about the money he received? Because he didn't speak of that. It was actually rather fascinating. He issues this statement that speaks to the elected officials, calling on them to return the money, really without reservation from any of the contributions they received from the Frost family or the associated companies around First Liberty or First Liberty itself. And indeed, there's a lot. There's dozens, maybe hundreds of various contributions in various forms from these family members. And so very quickly, Gabriel Sterling, who is, most people recognize that he is COO of the Secretary of State's office and has been involved with Raffensperger since early on. He was originally part of the Secretary of State's office, then was named to be the implementation manager for the Dominion systems as they were put in place in Georgia, stepped out of the role and went to work outside the Secretary of State's office for a while, then came back. So he's a notable character. He keeps popping up and reposts Raffensperger's statement on his Facebook account. Well, pretty quickly, he got a couple of questions from folks. Namely, well, what is Raffensperger going to do with contributions that he may have received? Gabriel Sterling answered it. And in this case, he answered to a gentleman, Samuel Thomas. And his answer to Samuel was, he, meaning Raffensperger, received none. Well, Samuel then went back and he posted a list of transactions. Well, that, along with some sources that we have in the field, came forward and said, this deserves looking into. I think you might find something here. So we did that. We went to the Georgia ethics site, ethics.ga.gov, and through various choices, we did a look up and sort on the name Frost and on all contributions made to any party during essentially the last couple of decades. And so we found quite a list. There's, I don't know how many total contributions were made, but it's well up into, I think, 300 lines or thereabout, something like that, or 200 lines. And so a number of parties received money, but sure enough, we found 8 lines, I believe, that relate to Raffensperger. And so we published that, and we published it within the context of the article that I noted. We also looked up on Transparency USA and found very similar things, although not as much detail. But again, we found that Krista Shira Frost, which is, I guess, her middle name, that is the mother, if you will, of Brant Frost V and the wife of Brant Frost IV, made contributions to Raffensperger, and it was quite a tidy little sum. And so we looked on and we found that Brant Frost additionally had made contributions to Raffensperger, and you can see the actual list directly from the ethics site there at the top. And so we published in the article that list. We published the entire spreadsheet of all the contributions we could find. And so folks are able to review that simply by going to the article that I started with. This one right here, exclusive breaking, Raffensperger calls for elected officials to return First Liberty Frost contributions. Just look that up on georgiarecord.com and you will find the entire article with the backup documents. So in addition, I did want to call out that people have asked, well, since Josh McKoon seems so tight with both the Frost family and Brant Frost, especially Jr., he gave him a number of things apparently to do at a number of different GOP events and meetings. So we looked through the spreadsheet, and sure enough, we found that several contributions had been made to Joshua McKoon in this case, back during his run for Secretary of State in 2018. We also found contributions to Brian Kemp coming from the Frost, and we published those excerpt lists as well so people can review them. So a lot of people did get funding. Greg Dolezal, I remember, was on the list, and others. And I think McCormick got, our friends at McCormick got some money from the Frost as well. So as you go through this, you'll see some interesting names. So there's potentially a fair amount of money that might be returned, if you will, if people comply with Raffensperger's recommendation or call for action. What's interesting is we published this, I think yesterday, and then this morning we got news that actually Raffensperger himself had acted on it. Greg Bluestein with the AJC published this saying that Raffensperger returned $8,400 and change in donations received from the Frost family. And as part of this, the family that's attached to this $140 million Ponzi scheme. I found that kind of fascinating. I'm not sure that he reacted directly to what we said, but it was notable. And it did come after he called on other elected officials to, to take action. Now, was this to in some way help distance himself from any relationship with the Frost family? We don't know. Is it to get out in front of the other politicians that may be running for various offices? Because we're right in the middle of people announcing what they're planning on running for in 26. Again, we don't know exactly, but it is an interesting thing for him to have done. And note that he made sure that the AJC was there and that they got a picture, and he's holding the check, it appears, and a photo opportunity, as we call them in the business. So it is interesting. Our friend Brian K. Pritchard over at Voice of Rural America called this out. He's the first to return the money. Where is the statement from the Georgia Republicans, meaning Josh McKoon and Chairman Whatley. Are they involved, or were they aware of the Ponzi scheme? Why is everybody silent? So to your point, there's lots of silence wrapped around us. Now, go back for a minute and remember last year when Colton Moore reported finding folks being trafficked through Hartsfield. Do you remember the deafening silence?
Yeah, across. Well, Kemp has not said anything either.
That's right. Kemp hasn't said a word about this. And now we find that he indeed got money from the Frost. And so this silence is in and of itself a message to me. And let's see. And then Kylie Kramer also called out, this is too small probably to read on here, but she called out some of the conversations that she's had with folks that apparently have been harmed by the collapse and the potential loss of their investments across. Some of these are people across the country, and she again calls out, that this is specific to the family, and we have said it, and others are saying it, that this is going back and looking at how they promoted this business is very, very troubling.
Well, there's another point to this the BKP brought up that I think is worth reiterating, is that if it's not an official political race, like say a party position, then you don't have to report contributions, is what he said. So I want to see the money flows eventually. I mean, this could be not just to make money, but to also fund certain things, that you don't want anybody to see.
You bet. And in the next segment that we're going to talk through, the court may be actually stepping in to help uncover some of those things. We're going to talk about what's called a consent judgment that was entered on Friday, that along with some other documents that will govern the conduct, at least of First Liberty Building and Loan and Brand Frost IV, and we'll speculate on what its effects may be on others. If you want to take a break for just a moment, this might be a good time.
Yeah, sure. So let me just again, I want to know, for instance, if Josh McKoon got money from the Frost family.
Well, we just showed the list of contributions that we discovered. Is there more somewhere? We don't know that.
Was
but
his name
we know
on
some.
there? I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Was McKoon on there?
Yes.
Okay. As a politician, as a party chief, or
no? As when he was running for Secretary of State back in 2018, he received funds. I don't recall the number, but it's in the article, and it was just on that slide that we covered a few minutes ago.
Yeah. So I guess I should be clearer. I was focusing on his, the GOP races.
Yeah.
So. All right, yeah, so we're going to take a break. We got a product, Nucleo Boost, which I'm going to run this ad and talk about it briefly.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained, and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right? Mm-hmm. The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods. So what
this is
does it
what
do?
drove you to develop
Well-
this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right?
Mhm.
You know that.
So this is Nucleo Boost. Go to cdmnutrition.com, check out the subscription, fill in the potholes at the cellular level in your body so you can fight off disease. They also have the new capsules. Check those out. The subscriptions are cheaper monthly than buying one time, but I use it constantly every day. If I notice it if I don't take it, and it gives me a lot of stamina. I've been sick occasionally, but I haven't had, diseases come my way often. So I believe in it. It makes me feel good. Back to you, Bill.
That's great. Okay, so all of this wrapped around the Frost family and First Liberty continues to move at what most people feel is a pretty darn fast pace. At least it seemingly is. One of the things that happened, as I said, there was a consent judgment placed into the court records on Friday, along with some other documents that give more detail. We'll be releasing those documents as we receive them in the coming couple of days. But the consent judgment, I'll show you a copy of it. Here it is between, again, the SEC and Brant Frost IV, the father, if you will, and First Liberty Building and Loan. Now, keep in mind, this complaint, when filed, is a civil complaint. This is not criminal. Criminal would be a completely different process. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. This is a civil proceeding. And in part, people reacted to this saying, oh my gosh, how could they have settled this so quickly? Well, it's not exactly a settlement agreement. It is a consent judgment to be bound by certain things that the defendants and what are called the relief defendants, the other ancillary companies that appear to be also potentially owned, I guess, by Brant Frost and Company or by First Liberty, and they're in some way associated with First Liberty. And they may have some or more assets inside each one of these companies, which might have come from First Liberty and thus would be subject to the ruling of this particular court case because it came out of what they're charging was fraudulent activity. So this judgment does a number of things. It puts in place a number of constraints under which First Liberty can operate. They're not shutting them completely, it doesn't appear, but they are putting really hard constraints around what can be moved in and out of any bank accounts, where it can be moved, who has to supervise, if any additional money comes in, where is it going to go? And a lot of this is governed based on what they call the receiver. The receiver is, in this case, a person that has been assigned by the court to essentially try to round up as many assets as they can for the benefit of the people that have been allegedly fraudulently harmed in this. So there's a number of steps. I don't want to go through all of them, but I want to make clear that this is not the end of the process. This is actually more setting the steps for the process to go out, look at what still exists that can be recovered, where it is, what they might need to do to recover it, and gradually reassemble as much of that funding as they can for the benefit of the folks that have been potentially harmed. In and of that, it governs the conduct of First Liberty, governs the certain conduct by Brant Frost the fourth in doing what needs to be done under this agreement. In most of the cases, it also affects other people that have been either employees or officers or associated or what they call servants of First Liberty. So they're trying to govern the conduct of folks so that they can define what and how will be done as we go forward in recovering as much as is possible. Bear with me for just a second. So one of the questions is, and this will be even more germane in a few minutes. But one of the questions is, what is Section 7 and why is it there? And it's fascinating. Within this, it says it's further ordered as part of this consent judgment, notwithstanding the foregoing restrictions, Truist Bank will transfer $34,000 in change from First Liberty Capital Funding account to the law firm of Chambers, Adams, Backer, and Kaufman to pay outstanding legal fees incurred by First Liberty Capital Partners. And it says prior to the initiation of this action. So I think we might have reported this as part of the case of defending First Liberty. That might be a misstatement. We don't know the detail behind this, but this appears to actually be paying for things that might have been done prior to whatever they are defining as this action. So,
And it would make you wonder, if it was before this action, what would the court want to make sure paid for?
that's true. Why would this be separate from all the other constraints that they're putting on First Liberty? For example, they're limiting, pardon me, how they can transfer money in and out of a bank account beyond a certain amount. It has to be documented immediately to the receiver. The receiver then might redefine what can be done with that money. All kinds of things are under control of the court in this process. But this one seems to stand out. Why is that? Well, we want to make sure folks know who this is. So this law firm, Chambers, Adams, Backer, and Kaufman, has one of the folks that we've talked about frequently on this show and in our writing in the past, I guess, several years now. One, Alex Kaufman. Alex Kaufman has been active in representing the Fulton County GOP, in representing the Georgia GOP, the Republican Party, Inc., and others, and is notable. He's involved in so many things at the 7th District Convention in Forsyth County. Kaufman was there helping to govern the affairs and the operations of that convention. My understanding was he might have been at several others. So he plays a very deep role in a number of these GOP activities. And that's interesting because apparently also, in addition to that, he was doing, or his firm was doing, certain work for First Liberty and or Brant Frost IV. Does any of that suggest a potential conflict of interest? Well, we don't know. We would hope that, as most law firms do, that they would have looked at that prior to engaging with various entities and have determined that there was no conflict of interest before proceeding. We don't know. We suspect that the authorities are probably looking at this because of that connection and because of the concerns that I think the authorities are now aware of about the interplay between the GOP, the Georgia GOP, and the Frosts and First Liberty, all part and parcel of what we just got through talking about a few minutes ago, which was that long list of contributions that went to elected officials or candidates for elected office over many, many years. I think I saw that the oldest one in the list was Casey Cagle going back to 2006, believe it or not.
So the question I have when all this is, the court wanted to pay for these expenses prior to this litigation. You know, they didn't want to pay the copying machine vendor contract. They wanted to pay for these legal expenses. Why? Was there something going on prior to this that they needed to make sure got paid for? Some type of, agreement with the government, or who knows? I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't have any proof, but it's interesting, right?
It is very interesting why that particular section would be so different and would call out a payment, especially of that size. I mean, many of the stipulations in this judgment limit transactions, or limit even monthly transactions, to $10,000 or $20,000 going in and out of bank accounts. Here, in one fell swoop, is a payment of $34,000. And again, for outstanding legal fees incurred by First Liberty prior to the initiation of this action. So they were doing some sort of work for First Liberty. What was that? Again,
Well,
we
it
don't know.
also makes you think that maybe that, as people have suggested, maybe there was some negotiations going on prior to this. The court was aware of it, and this law firm was involved in those negotiations, and the court wanted to make sure in good faith that they were taken care of. You know, who knows?
Yeah, that's it. It's a possibility. It's a question. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know as we sit here today. Mm-hmm. But Mr. Kaufman's name will come up again in just the next few minutes in another regard. So again, what did we start the show with? You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's where are we? We're in good shape, I think, on timing. Let's move on to the next segment here. So yesterday, and again, I give credit, deep credit to folks all over Georgia. We've got some very, very good friends and partners and so forth that, they give us a heads up on certain things. And yesterday, in sort of the early afternoon, I began getting contact with regard to a luncheon, which had apparently occurred at a place called the Blue Ridge Grill down in Atlanta. And so earlier today, we published this article about it, and we really just, at the moment, we have a lot more questions than we have answers, but let's take a look at what it was. So apparently, Mr. Michael Whatley, the RNC chairman of the RNC, came into town and had lunch with Josh McKoon and who else? Alex Kaufman. You can see this in this picture. I'll show you a bigger version in just a moment. They're sitting around this table in ostensibly the Blue Ridge Grill, and they've got two other gentlemen there in the picture that they're talking to. Now, we didn't know who they were, but we thought it would be interesting to ask folks in the public if they knew who they were, because several had already commented, gosh, that one gentleman looks pretty familiar. I think I've seen him, but I can't really place him yet. So we issued this, and then we put at the bottom in a caption, if folks had information as to who the gentleman was on the far left or the far right, please bring it forward. You may get some emails from it. I may get some emails with people's guess. And it's very interesting. Now, keep in mind that Michael Whatley has been informed of the deep, deep concerns surrounding the GOP state convention just held during the beginning of June. It's been documented. It's been sent in, I think, twice, once to the RNC and once to their counsel. And in fact, it was reported in an email from David Cross that Michael Whatley had actually responded to it and stated that the GA GOP convention and election is being reviewed by the dispute committee, whatever that is. We don't have more detail on that, but with the time that email came out, which was 3 days ago, that seemed to be, potentially a good step. At least they're acknowledging that there may be an issue here. Then comes this picture of everybody sitting at lunch, kind of yucking it up, it looks like in some cases. And here's a picture of Michael Whatley, Josh McKoon, and this is Dennis Futch, one of the other GOP operatives from South Georgia. And boy, this looks like a pre-election picture. Everybody's got thumbs up and big old smiles, and Whatley has his hand, I think, on McKoon's shoulder. This looks like, glad handing to me. What in the heck's going on? We're supposed to be in the middle of a serious investigation of what happened at our state convention, led by Josh McKoon, and then turning the reins over to Mike Crane. And guess who was also one of the folks there at the state convention was, of course, Alex Kaufman.
And the Frost family was involved in that behavior at the convention.
Frost family was all over it.
Yeah.
Brant Frost 5 he's in a number of videos and a number of pictures by the mics, apparently trying to make sure that they control the mics. He's made statements in either signal or text since, saying, well, we controlled the communication by controlling the mics. We got there first, basically kind of a, hey, tough. We got there first. We were smarter.
Yep.
Wait a minute. That's not exactly smarter. That's not really the way conventions are supposed to be run. And you're not supposed. That's
It's
right,
corrupt.
and you're not supposed to have rules enacted and certain voting methods enacted by sneaking them into the back of rules and so forth. But they did that too. And so all of these are part and parcel of these complaints that were sent in. And I happen to know from speaking to the people that delivered it that at a Faith and Freedom conference up in Washington, D.C. in the past 2 or 3 weeks, Mr. Whatley was handed a document specifying many of these same complaints and concerns, handed it to him personally. So there is not a way that he can claim he doesn't know about what happened in Georgia.
So let me just recap for our audience. So you had a convention where the Frost family and Josh McKoon ran it in a tyrannical manner, not having, in our, I don't think any intellectually honest person's opinion, a fair process. And then you have a complaint by David Cross sent in.
David Cross and others signed it too.
To the head of the GOP, Michael Whatley, who's in this picture in the blue jacket and the white shirt, holding his hand out. And then you have the Frost $140 million Ponzi scheme collapse a few days later. And you have the attorney in this picture getting 35 grand from the consent decree, his firm, I should say, not necessarily him specifically. And though they all go have lunch, and then Whatley has a complaint against the guy to his left, and he's yucking it up, and everything's
and then
cool.
taking a nice big smiley picture.
Yeah, and
like everything's cool.
Everything's cool. It's just in the end, I asked David Cross today. I had him on the skiff this morning. I said, David, did you get the call? Did you get a call from Whatley? Hey, let's have coffee and go over your complaint. And crickets, nothing.
Yeah.
So unbelievable.
There's actually more to that as well. So one of the things that we like to do, and again, we give full credit to folks that are really watching the details in these things. I had a conversation earlier today where some folks said, hey, zoom in on the picture and look in the background. And what you may not notice at first is these, which look like pass-throughs or windows into another room, they're actually mirrors. And so they're going to look back at this table and the table on the side, tables on the side of the room. And if we do that, it actually gets pretty interesting. So here's the picture again. There's a zoom in on a portion of the picture. Now, again, we don't know who this gentleman is on the left-hand side, but look in the mirror behind Whatley. You can see Whatley or someone facing the other direction. But notice the face that's in this mirror. We took a look at that, and we had other people come forward, and I believe they've confirmed this. That appears to be Betsy Kramer. Well, Betsy Kramer was one of the ones to post on, and this, by the way, all of these pictures came from Dennis Futch's Facebook account. And so not the one I just showed there, but all of these pictures at the grill. And Betsy was one of the ones to post, well, thank you for coming into town and having a successful meeting or something along those lines. So, and there she is. So is that her? Well, we can't guarantee it, but it sure does look like her. We also have believe we've identified Jason Thompson. I think that's him right over this gentleman's shoulder. And in fact, Dennis Futch actually made a mention of Jason Thompson being there. Keep in mind, Jason Thompson is the Republican, Georgia State Republican committeeman. There are 3, I'll call it ranking officials in our state when it comes to the Republican Party. You've got Josh McKoon, the head of the Georgia GOP itself, and then you've got Republican committee man, Republican committee woman. Well, I am told that Jason Thompson apparently was invited and attended. But isn't it interesting? I heard through the grapevine, I haven't been able to speak with her directly, but I heard through the grapevine that Amy Kremer, our Republican committee woman for Georgia, was not invited to this. Why would that be? Why would Jason Thompson be invited and Amy Kremer is not? Well, we don't know that, but it's a solid question. And especially given the fact that Amy Kremer had posed some very, very direct questions of Josh McKoon prior to the convention, and those questions were effectively ignored. Never got an answer to them. And it was who is this, who is this expense for, and who is that expense for? Most notably, who for on whose behalf and for whom was $5,000 paid to Best Guess Media to help get somebody placed on TV? Well, we don't have an answer to that. Some have speculated that it was likely Katie Frost. Again, this funny tie-in potentially between Frost family doings and the GOP and expenditures and other things. So why was Ms. Kremer not invited to this, Amy Kremer? Don't know. It's a shame. And it is surprising given the fact that Michael Whatley was in town. Normally, that would be the normal cadence. You would, I believe, have at least the top GOP operatives in the state notified. Go ahead, Todd,
there's another pattern here. We have talked often that, there's been some mention of this, mostly in the liberal press. I think you said Fox ran it, but Conservative Inc. has completely ignored this, and they have completely ignored, the other corruption in Georgia, and in fact, supported the GOP in Georgia in many ways, in spite of what the reporting we've done and others. And the optics look really bad for Whatley. And there's a comment from one of our readers here. Lady Royale says that man on the very far left of the table is giving one really mean looking glare to that person.
Yes, he is.
I think he's like, you're going to be sleeping with the fishes or something. So,
yeah,
I don't know who that is, but
we don't know who it is yet. And he does not look very pleased to see a picture being taken. Why? We don't know.
Let me throw something else up.
Yeah.
Just back in, I guess I don't have the date, but maybe well over a year ago, we put up. Let me just bring this up. We did, you and I, Bill, a meeting with John Kane out of North Carolina about.
I wondered if you'd remember this. Go right ahead. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to play it, but our people can find it on, if you go to CDM1 Rumble channel and just go to our content and then type in Whatley, this will come up. And you can listen to people complaining about Whatley in North Carolina some time ago before the 24 election.
Do you recall what Mr. Kane reported about something that emerged right in the middle of that convention that was, I think, unanticipated? They used electronic clickers for the vote.
Wow. Interesting.
I would love to draw a conclusion there, but I'm going to withhold for the moment. But isn't it interesting? So, once again, you can't make this stuff up. No. So for those that don't, that I was mentioning Jason Thompson. For those that don't know Jason, here's a couple pictures of him. Here's one. I believe this was during the RNC or thereabouts. And who's he hugging? He's hugging Michael Whatley. And on the left, here's Jason Thompson. And who's he hugging? Katie Frost. Isn't that interesting? You see these connections, you see these patterns, and it is at a certain point, it becomes, I believe, easy to see who's with who. Okay.
Well, the fact that the Frost won't leave positions of power, the fact that Josh has said nothing, the fact that Whatley has said nothing, the fact that Trump has said nothing, the fact that Susie Wiles has said nothing, or Carolyn Levitt has said nothing. I mean, this is a huge freaking deal. $140 million stolen.
Well, that plus all the concerns around the convention, given everything else that, President Trump has been espousing with regard to elections. He held the meeting with the governors. Kemp was in the room. I am told that he had a front row seat, and so heard exactly what President Trump envisioned for our elections going forward. And what did he want? Hand-marked, people marked, hand-marked, paper ballots, hand counting, same-day voting, voter ID, and citizenship confirmation. Very straightforward. Have we done any of those things in Georgia since that meeting? The answer is no. We have some level of voter ID, fine. But again, we've got these dirty voter rolls, and everybody that knows about them knows it. And Raffensperger's off trying to clean them up as best he can quickly, in spite of the fact that he's been claiming they're the cleanest in the country. If they were the cleanest in the country, why would he have to clean them now to the tune of, I believe he said about 500,000 registrations have to be changed and some taken off. Why would that be if we were so clean?
Yeah.
So, all right. So we've talked about McKoon. We've talked, and you called out no comment. We've talked about, Brant Frost and the concerns and his involvement in the Georgia GOP convention. Again, no comments on any of that. No comments from the state committee. No comments from the executive committee. Everybody just kind of goes dark. One of the things we reported the other day, and I'll call it out in a line item here in just a moment, was that one of the contributions that was done in June, on the 10th of June, was a contribution to Candace Taylor of $3,500 made by Krista Frost, the mom. Many people have called for Candace to acknowledge that, ask why did you get this? Are you going to return it, as Raffensperger called on elected officials or candidates to do, and in fact has done himself? And silence about it. How could that be?
Pushback on social media. I've done nothing wrong. Okay, well, nobody really said that. They just want you to give the money back.
Right. Well, I've done nothing wrong other than accept money that may have come from people from whom it was fraudulently taken.
Well, let's let our audience think, on what planet does a family member of a family that ran a $140 million Ponzi scheme, in the SEC's words, not ours, and what planet does the daughter of that family stay as chair of the Georgia GOP Financial Oversight Committee? I mean, are we in space relations here? I mean, what the hell is going on, Bill?
And again, no comment from her, no comment from Josh, just silence. Well, I think because what could you say? I assigned her just before this broke. Now I look like I've got ham and eggs on my face, so I'm not even going to talk about it. Did he take her out of that position? We have no idea. It won't talk about it. Now, the other thing, and I didn't create slides on it, but we will talk it through. Kylie Kremer reported this earlier today, and I guess yesterday. So over the weekend, we heard that Brant Frost, the fifth, had been the chairman of the Coweta GOP. During their, I think it was a Saturday meeting, they announced, the first vice chair announced that Brant Frost was stepping back and the first vice chair would be acting chairman. And I think posted something to that effect for a while. What we're told now, and this is only, 4 days later? Now we're told that Brant Frost, the fifth, is back in chairmanship of the Coweta GOP. His mom, Krista Frost, is second vice chair of the Coweta GOP. Nobody's moved an inch.
Yeah.
And yet,
they still have access to the checkbooks. They still have,
well, as is commanded by the we hope by the consent judgment. But the point is
Brant Frost, right? The fourth, or is
it's the fourth? It's the fourth and First Liberty. But it also calls out. I'm going to show you something in just a moment, and it does call out other associated parties. And I'll let people see it so they can actually read it and understand.
Let me just pay some bills real quick. I'm going to run a couple of ads from our sponsors because we've been putting out a lot of info. Stay with us.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great, and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
So for our audience, please don't go to the big box retailers. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code CDM, get the best discounts. College kids are going back to school. They need sheets, they need towels, they need jammies, they need slippers, they need everything. Mike has 600 products. Get it from there. Don't give it your money to people that want to hurt you. So back to you, Bill.
Who in college wears jammies?
You'd be surprised.
Really? Okay.
I think the girls do a lot, actually.
Okay. All right. Well, we won't go there. So one of the things I want to amend, I said a few minutes ago that I believed up in North Carolina they had used clickers. That may be erroneous. It may have been an app-based electronic voting solution, but it was in fact a solution that people were surprised by, and it was electronic. So I'll leave it at that for the time being. Recommend folks go back and listen to our interview with Mr. Kane. Okay, so again, we've seen these names keep cropping up, and we're wondering what in the heck is going on. Then, believe it or not, now keep in mind, here you have a family wrapped around First Liberty Building and Loan. The father he was the founder, obviously the foundation of the company. The son, Brant Frost, 5, has been directly involved. He's been promoting it. I'm told by people that he often would be the one sitting in the office. If anybody was in the office there on Greenville Street in Noonan. And so one of the things you would think is, boy, they'd try to get away from the financial biz, Well, maybe not. To her credit, Kylie Kramer posted this earlier today. And believe it or not, Brant Frost V just got through doing documents to stand up a new financial company called Heartland Capital, LLC. It says, as part of this filing, that it will be involved in the finance and insurance sector, and the subcode indicates it will be doing mortgage and non-mortgage loan brokers. So back to doing loans. Is this, is he precluded from doing this? Well, we don't know. But we did go back and look at the consent judgment, and there we go. And noted that in several places, it is worded in such a way that it says that the order shall be and is binding upon each of the defendants, relief defendants, and each of their agents, servants, employees, attorneys, in fact, and those persons in active concert or participation with them who receive actual notice of this order. Now, I'm pretty certain that they made sure that everybody that needed to received notice of the order. But what that seems to do is wrap in everybody that was working with First Liberty in any of those regards. We would suspect and hope that this would include Brant Frost V, and would be something that is being considered in light of the fact that he appears to be starting up yet again another finance company. Does it prevent him from doing that? Well, I'm not going to play attorney. And as I said earlier, it does not prevent even First Liberty from doing good business, but it does preclude them from doing and gets promises from them that they will not conduct any business which appears to be, or in fact does, violate certain codes, or fraudulently presents things or misrepresents
So
things around loans.
when Bernie Madoff was seized, did they allow him to just continue on and do good business?
Not that I recall.
Yeah, it's
Not
bizarre.
that I recall.
Yeah, this is bizarre.
So it seems unusual. But keep in mind, this is really the first. This whole order is the first step in the process. The first thing that, from what I understand from anecdotal conversations with people that are more familiar with this process, if you will, is that the first thing they try to do is go back and get as much of the assets recaptured as they can, or clawed back, and some people call it, so that the folks that have been potentially harmed can receive a recovery in some form or fashion. Does anybody have the expectation it's going to be 100%? I don't think anybody has that expectation. But as we've said in previous shows, the true pain in this, the true sorrow, is for those with limited resources who put, in some cases, almost all their retirement money or almost all their life savings in one of these loans, and now may become truly harmed, truly destitute because of something that's happened here.
I was talking to one of our sources this morning, and he pointed out something which I just want to mention to our audience. I'm going to bring this up. Can you take that down?
Yep.
Okay. This is First Liberty Building and Loan. That looks like a bank. And the person brought up the point that was made to look like a bank. And I believe the advertising said, when the big banks say no, we say yes. So that should be, that's a conscious decision. And I think, was it you saying that in the movie 1930s, what am I trying to think, with it was made up in New York about the Christmas movie? It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah.
If I am correct, the bank in that movie was named First Liberty Building and Loan, or something to that effect.
I don't have that in front of me, unfortunately. I apologize. I will say that on some of the line items, not many, but a few, the word banker is used in conjunction with one or more members of the Frost family. I believe that's correct. It's, to the best of my recollection, I've seen it there on that set of reports. So there may have been times early on where they referred to themselves as a bank or bankers, but they, I believe, have distanced themselves from using that term in recent years.
Well, the point is,
if
you go to, I don't know, Chevrolet Financial or whatever, they don't have big gold letters in the doorway it doesn't look like a bank. That looks like a bank in a small town in the middle.
Well, there's also a big brass plate out next to the door that says First Liberty Financial, which looks like what you would expect next to, the marble opening to a regular bank in a big city. So
yeah. Okay, enough on that. Back to you.
So again, we expect there's going to be, unfortunately, more come out about this. But I want to set the expectation for folks that this is the beginning of a process, not the end of the process. This is a civil proceeding and a civil judgment. So they are commanded by the court, they being First Liberty and Brent Frost IV, are commanded by the court to comply with this order such that they can control the operations and see what assets may be out there and what may still be recoverable, and actually enact doing that. At the same time, it does bode concerns for many people to see, the son going back into another financial business. And I guarantee you there's going to be a million eyes of scrutiny on that business to make sure that people know what's happening there. And in addition, there already seems to be this tone of, well, we're simply not going to talk about certain things we don't want to talk about. And I alluded to it a few minutes ago, and that is, the convention concerns. Well, the concerns were voiced and documented to the executive committee, to the state committee, not a peep, not really ignored the entire thing. They've been documented to Michael Whatley and the Republican National Committee. Michael Whatley, as I showed earlier, responded in some form or fashion to David Cross's group and said that it was being considered and reviewed by the dispute committee, whoever that is. But again, nothing there. And then he shows up for this lunch, glad handing McKoon.
Yeah, with the attorney that got paid by the settlement agreement, or
with the attorney for the GOP, with the attorney that was involved in the convention, with the attorney that seems to have had work being done for First Liberty. And then overall GOP concerns. Brant Frost is back as the Coweta chair, I am told, as of today. How could that be when they just announced Saturday he was going to step back and the first vice chair was going to be acting chair?
And no one said resign.
No one said the word resignation or resign. That's correct. Krista Frost, the mom, is still Coweta's second vice chair. Candace Taylor has made, is not answered the questions revolving around the $3,500 received on the 10th, again, this magic date of June 10th, from Krista Frost. What was it for? Why was it done that day? Why that amount? Won't answer any of that. And no one from the Frost family has resigned from any of the posts that they hold, as far as we can tell, within the GOP, the executive committee, the state committee, or any of the ancillary committees.
It's obvious that the Georgia GOP does not care one bit about what people think of them. It's all about just controlling the power structure.
Not according to the reaction or lack thereof so far. You would think, somebody said to me earlier today, well, isn't it nice to see Raffensperger act like a leader for a change and do something when he calls on others to do it? Well, isn't it interesting to bring that up, especially with Raffensperger, who, is largely despised among the conservative community in Georgia for all the different things that he did and didn't do surrounding the elections, and that Charlene McGowan, his general counsel, has failed or done. But here you have the GOP leadership who, many have called into question now for months, maybe years, and no one's doing anything about these things.
Well, Raffensperger figures he can get in by hook or crook, essentially, I think.
Well, maybe the normies are out there not paying attention to anything, but they'll hear that, oh, he gave the money back. Oh, he's a good guy then.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen that way, but who knows? Maybe that's part of it.
He gave the money back after we reported on it.
But think back. Let's talk just for a moment about this notion of doing nothing. Where have we seen this over and over again? We saw Colton Moore discover trafficking going on in Hartsfield Airport in an assigned room. Who assigned it to him? We don't know. Who was orchestrating it? Well, we know a couple of the NGOs, and we've seen people being trafficked on video. What was done in the Senate or the House in the Georgia legislature about any of it? They wouldn't even acknowledge it, even though he spoke on the Senate floor. Nothing. Silence. Then Colton Moore himself again gets excluded from the House chamber, supposedly. There's debate that can even be done. Pardon me. And then when he attempts to enter for a joint session, gets thrown to the floor by a guy pretending to be a licensed attorney in Georgia, and calling himself a general counsel for the House leader. And yet it's not true that he's a licensed attorney. It's not true that he can't be a general counsel in Georgia if he's not. And he throws a sitting state senator to the floor, and yet nothing happens. And nobody says a word about it other than a couple of people from the Freedom Caucus. God bless them. Silence. We throw up the concerns around tort reform. Kemp comes back from Davos. All of a sudden, tort reform is this major thing. Why?
Mm-hmm.
And there's white papers written by other states that say tort reform doesn't do anything for the consumer. All it protects is the insurance companies because it limits their exposure in some cases. We surface it. We talk about it. There's dozens, hundreds of people posting their concerning comments. Not a word about, what they're going to do to stop it. They're all glad handing one another, and Burt Jones and John Burns are behind Kemp when he says we might need another session later this year to make sure this gets done. and
Yeah.
they're laughing and joking it up about it. Really, laughing about that, but you're silent about trafficking going on in Hartsfield Airport. People will eventually, I have to trust that they will see this, and enough people will see these things if we keep hammering on them that will understand. And you can't walk back this stuff. Once you've done these things, you can't walk them back. And the coup de grace was the darn pesticide bill that's probably going to set some people in Georgia up that are especially exposed to some of these chemicals, where they can't get even a court case against the company that made the chemicals, because it's there's restrictions on, well, if they didn't put it on the warning label, you can't sue them for it.
Yeah.
These things are troubling. These are bad decisions. These are bad things going on, and yet nobody wants to talk about them. And there's more coming. We're going to later in the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about a facility that's being planned for south of Atlanta that will probably end up damaging or potentially poisoning some areas of that. And yet we've got Senate leadership that's they know all about it, and they're apparently reportedly happy to foster it. That's concerning, and we're going to out it when it's time. So silence will not play.
Well, I think unless you got anything else, I think that's about it for today, right? Is there?
I got one thing just to close the show with. We haven't talked about.
Let me say a few things first, but
Yeah.
I'm on the skiff tomorrow, 10 to noon. I'll have Masaka Ganaha, who is Michael Yan's colleague. They're in Japan, and they're going to out this study that came out where Japan analyzed 21 million COVID vaccine recipients, and the data is scary and astounding. So join us on the skiff tomorrow for that. Also, I had a great interview with Steve Robinson from the Maine Wire that Tucker interviewed recently. I did that this morning. Fascinating and very similar things going on in Maine and what's going on here. They have chemicals coming in by the Chinese drug lords, organized crime, that are literally nerve agents that are poisoning people that grow them, that are involved in the marijuana, that they consume it or grow it, and zero, not a peep from the government. And also, I just want to highlight real quick, if you go to the Manhattan.press, our New York paper, the Manhattan.press, go to the top menu and click on the Manhattan bestsellers. This is the best bestsellers list out there. These are the editor's picks, but we don't do any bias. Liberal books are on here. It's just the best-selling books every week. We have adult nonfiction, adult fiction, politics, history, young adult and nonfiction, children's fiction and nonfiction. And if you want to buy one of these books, you just click on, like here's Howard Zinn's book. That is a liberal, obviously a globalist book. We just put out the books that sell the most that week. And if you click on checkout, you can buy the book at our CDM bookstore, and you can search for any other book and buy it. So don't buy from Amazon, buy from us. Easy way to support free media. The beach read, the school project you need, the business book, buy it from us and not them. So back to you, Bill, to close out.
All right. So people, we didn't really discuss the Epstein files and all the kerfuffle going on there, but it appears that Pam Bondi may have a solution. So I wanted to share this just briefly.
Anyway, I'm going to need everyone to look at this little flashy thingy over here. If anyone is wearing sunglasses, please take them off and just look straight into this flashy thingy, okay? Here we go. 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, welcome to the Georgia Show.
It was
man,
in black where they spray that thing and wipe your memory.
Yeah, you know. I saw that and I thought, this is, in some ways, when we're all done with this at some point, I hope we are. I want one of those so that I can forget the pain of going through this unbelievable junk with these people that pretend to be leaders. So with that, we are done. Thank you for everything, and we'll see you next time.